Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning back into the Ground and Pound cast. We just got through watching UFC 324, kicking off 2026, kicking off the Paramount era. I am joined with Nostradamus. Rick was not able to make it, so tell everyone hi, Roy.
Hi, everybody pray for Rick. He's in a frosty, cold environment in Louisiana. The crawfish man is not used to this.
Right. Yeah, he's dealing with some power issues, so we were really wanting to get him on this episode so we could discuss things as a trio, but he was just not able to make it and probably won't be for a few more days. So
it was impressive that he predicted every fight wrong.
No, he didn't.
Come on, man. You got to let me have some fun.
We're going to have plenty of fun. 324 was fun. It really was.
It was.
Especially that main event. Justin Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett. You know, I have this thing where I want to get all 5 predictions right on the main card, and I just know, because it's never happened for years, I've been trying this. If I make it 4-0 and I get to the last one, I just know I'm going to be wrong because I'm destined to never get a perfect 5-0. I was going 4-1 into the main event. I thought a young and primed Paddy Pimblett was going to beat Justin Gaethje and be the new interim lightweight title, but Justin Gaethje just had different plans, didn't he?
Paddy got robbed, bro.
Are you insane?
No, you put way too much stock in how thin Paddy's skin is showing damage, and Justin goes in there half a ginger, and the damage just blends in with his facial hair.
How many times did he drop? How many times did he drop Paddy?
Paddy outstruck him in 3 of the rounds.
There's also damage, octagon control. Paddy got dropped. Paddy,
it was all superficial.
Superficial. Did you see the picture of his face afterwards? It looked like ground meat.
That's a British thing.
Look, he got dropped time and time again. Justin Gaethje laid it on him. It was a very good back and forth fight, but
honestly, if I'm going to be honest, Paddy lost this one fair and square.
All right. I was about to say you're starting
blood boiling a little bit.
You're trying to start me in the wrong mood. So, all right, first off, I got to say a couple of things. So the judges' scorecards were 48-47 for one of the judges, and then 49-46 by 2 of the judges. I had it 48-47 because I had Paddy taking rounds 3 and 5. And I just want to say
47-47, if I'm going to be honest, because I would have penalized Gaethje for the second and third eye pokes.
And actually, so that is a good point to bring up. That actually is. So let's say, taking away the eye poke, it sounds like you scored it the same as me. Paddy taking 2 rounds and Justin taking 3 rounds. So there was an eye poke. It was unintentional. And there was
another one that was unintentional.
So there was a really hard,
and then there was another one in the second round.
Right. But what I'm getting at is there was a hard warning by the referee, and the referee says if it happens again, you're getting a point taken, which is, I'm glad that we're at least, trying to get firmer on and instead of multiple warnings. But in this case, the other ones just seemed to slip by the notice of the ref. So yeah, if you were to factor in that the ref should have seen that eye poke and penalized him for it. If you scored it the same way as me, giving Paddy 2 rounds, that means he's only down by 1 point total. And then if there's a point deduction, then it would have been ended in a draw. And we've seen this happen before when a title fight, and I'm assuming interim titles is no difference when it ends in a draw. I mean, well, actually, especially because the interim title, because that means neither one of these guys are champion. We've seen before where there's a vacant title and it ended in a draw, so neither one of them won the title. The title stayed vacant. And that's what I'm talking about when Ankalaev fought Jan Blachowicz a few years ago, and it was a draw for a vacant title, so the title just stayed vacant. So we would have, if it would have gone that way, we would have once again seen a vacant interim title or just not have an interim champion. I don't know. That would have been a very weird situation, but regardless, that's not the way it played out. Justin Gaethje won on the judges' scorecards. He is your new interim lightweight champion. So
it was a well-fought fight. Pimblett made one mistake that cost him the entire fight, but he made it over and over and over and over again.
He didn't try to grapple?
Okay, two mistakes. No, he tried to grapple in the fifth and just couldn't do anything with Justin. Well, Justin's just too strong for that.
Well, he was also a bit too drained.
Was every time that he would throw out that jab, he would drop his opposite hand, and Justin would just come across with a hook, hit him every time.
Yeah, it's kind of his bread and butter stand-up like opening. If you watch his fights, he looks for that in particular. Yeah. But we can say
he just kept showing it to him.
But we can say it is true. Scousers don't get knocked out.
Scousers don't get knocked out is the chant for the year.
Right. So in my notes here, talk about this fight. I always have what's next for the people that fought in this match. And so I have what's next for Justin. I don't even know why I wrote that down. We all know what's next for Justin. Ilia Topuria is going to come back, and they're going to unify the titles.
All order.
Right. So we already know what's next for Justin. The big question is, do you think he beats Ilia?
No.
Me neither.
I counted him out on this one, and Ilia is a completely different animal.
Ilia's
Paddy
a monster.
can go out there and fight his normal fight where he gets into the grappling and all. Ilia's normal fight is on his feet, punching faster than you. And Justin didn't show me anything in this fight to say he's quick enough to outpace Ilia on the feet.
Yeah. Now, the other question is... Yes. Now, the other question is, what's next for Paddy Pimblett?
Easy. Winner of Charles and Max. Or loser of Charles and Max, I mean.
So, okay, loser, that would actually make more sense than winner, because winner means he'd be going after the BMF title. I think
winner of Charles and Max needs to fight Armand next, but loser needs to fight Paddy.
So, if you're going after the BMF title, it's basically you've kind of given up on your aspirations for getting the weight class title. So I think Armand should not go against the winner of that one. He should eventually get a shot. Armand should be
unify next. Eventually.
Armand should go in. I mean, we've seen before where BMF champion is when Holloway fought Ilia Topuria whenever they're both champions. But Max didn't win, so I guess it wasn't unified. BMF is like a weird title, kind of floats around. It was in a completely different weight division, and then eventually just
Armand,
kind of disappeared.
Being the posh boy that he is, doesn't really fit the title of BMF. I can't imagine actually giving him a chance to get it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Armand
does after this last fight.
He does.
He's tough to take that from Justin.
He does, but I think he's too young and too entering his prime to put him into that division. I think what we need to do with Paddy, because a lot of people did point out that he's never fought a top fiver, and I didn't really notice that. I knew that he had kind of been getting pushed very quickly, but I never noticed that none of his opponents were top five. And matter of fact, I don't think he's fought anyone currently top 10 until you talk about Justin Gaethje. So I think he needs to continue working his way up the rankings and building up more experience. So maybe set him up with someone that's between 5 and 10, because when you look at above 5, it's the names we've already mentioned: Ilia Topuria, Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, Armand Tsarukyan. That's your top 5. So he needs to fight someone outside of those top 5. So let's look at the rankings. We have them up.
Hooker, Gamrot, Benoit Saint Denis, Fiziev, or Moicano.
Benoit Saint Denis booked already, but that would be a very fun fight. Yeah. I really think any of those fights would be a good fight. So we're looking at let's see. Yeah, Dan Hooker and Benoit Saint Denis already booked. Gamrot would be a good one. I think when it comes to just exciting fights, man, even though they're already booked, if you can in the future, and I think you'll have to with how good they are and where they're ranked, at some point we're going to see Paddy Pimblett and Benoit Saint Denis fight, and I think that would be a great fight. Fiziev, Moicano, yeah, these are all names that would be good fights for him. Gamrot, Hooker, any of those guys. Hooker and Pimblett already have beef, so maybe that's actually a good one. If since those two have beef with each other already, if Dan Hooker win or lose against Benoit Saint Denis, I think Paddy would be a good opponent after. So maybe set up that fight.
See, I think the loser out of Oliveira and Holloway is headed to probably fifth place. Patty will be pushed down to sixth. And, then Armand's got to go too. So Patty will be pushed down to seventh. I think the loser out of Charles and Max would be a good fight.
Yeah, that could be a good fight to keep him busy while you wait for the Dan Hooker Benoit Saint Denis fight to happen. And then I think we need to set up Hooker and Pimblett after that later on in the year. I think that would be a good setup. All right, moving along to the next fight, we got Sean O'Malley beating Song Yadong 29-28. He takes 2 rounds. Now, what's interesting about this fight, I actually agree with the judges, but apparently I'm in the minority. Based off of the dialogue that I see online, most people think that Song Yadong got robbed. What do you think about that? Do you think the judges got it right?
So both things are true. I think that the judges got it right, but I think that Song Yadong got robbed. And that we expected O'Malley to come out there and do what O'Malley did before the 2 fights with Merab, which was really high technical striking that was effective and finished fights. He got out there with Yadong, and I think that our expectations for O'Malley were too high because Yadong is a dangerous guy, but he was also ranked 15.
Yeah, and if you look at his win-loss record, he has a lot of good wins, but he has a pretty hefty handful of losses to people that Sean O'Malley's already beaten. And I know we don't rely off of MMA math, but you still look at when you lose to all of these guys and Sean beats them all, you just kind of assume Sean's just on another level. And it was a very close fight. It was a lot closer than I thought it would have been. And I agree that Song did take 1 round. And one big takeaway I took from this fight, we saw Merab 2 times in a row just completely own Sean O'Malley with his wrestling. We've been saying Sean O'Malley needs to work on his takedown defense because if you're a really good striker and you have a really good takedown defense, if people can't take you down, you keep it standing, you have elite striking, you're going to be a very dangerous person. And now we see Sean O'Malley, because Song Yadong was able to out-grapple him in the 3rd, if I remember correctly. I don't have that in my notes, but I'm pretty sure it's the 3rd round. Song Yadong started taking him down, and Sean O'Malley would just kind of pull guard and not really know what to do. He would sometimes create separation and scramble and get back up, but he was still getting taken down. And when he was on his back, he didn't have many answers for anything. So basically, why I'm mentioning all that, when you have names like Merab at the top and Umar Nurmagomedov, if you don't have your takedown defense fixed, you're just not going to be beating those guys. So all that being said, I still argue that Sean O'Malley, from a technical striking aspect, is top 5, at the very least top 10 in the UFC today when it comes to skilled technical striker. But with his lacking takedown defense, I don't see him ever touching a title again, unless Umar and Merab decide to switch weight classes or retire or something like that.
Yeah, you say it all the time. To be successful in the UFC, you need strong anti-grappling. And Sean showed that he has a truck-sized hole in his game when it comes to basic grappling.
Right. I mean, if you're not going to be a grappler, you need to have the anti-grappling. That's why whenever we see on rare occasions that a pure striker, like a boxer, comes over into trying MMA and they're like, well, I'm just going to rely on only my striking skills and nothing else. It's James Toney versus Randy Couture. Does that ring a bell to anybody? He got taken down from the opening exchange and choked out immediately. You need
Not
to have
everybody's going to be Izzy and Alex.
Right, but the thing is, Izzy and Alex train anti-grappling. They actually have good, especially Alex. Alex is shown to have really good takedown defense. Israel Adesanya, at one point it seemed like he did, but his last few fights I've seen him getting taken down a bit. I don't know if he's just maybe getting older and kind of losing it, but I know in his prime he was pretty good at keeping the fight standing. Like, it was really hard to take him down. If you try to get close and clinch with him, he knew how to separate and strike. And then Alex Pereira is really strong, and he knows how to keep his posture, turn his hips, and fight for underhooks so he doesn't get taken down. So that's how he's able to defend all the takedowns. Look at the match that he lost against Ankalaev. Even though he lost the match, it's still a good example of what I'm talking about, the way that he was able to turn his hip, get an underhook, and keep his body in a posture where he wasn't allowing Ankalaev to get those grips to pull him down. That's what you need, and Sean O'Malley just doesn't have that. You know, Song Yudong didn't try to take him down a whole lot, but the few times he did. And whenever Sean O'Malley was on his back, last I checked, he is a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, but whenever he was on his back, it just didn't seem like he had any kind of jiu-jitsu skills. Like, he didn't know what to do. Like, just because you train it and work your way up in a jiu-jitsu gym doesn't mean that you can necessarily carry that over into an MMA setting. It seems like when he was put on his back, he felt lost and just didn't know what to do. He would get punched a little bit. Eventually, he would try to just create separation to stand up. He wasn't really trying to set up anything special or anything like that. It looked like a white belt. All right, and moving along to the next fight, we have a fighter that we've been talking about a whole lot the last few episodes. Waldo Cortez Acosta.
Tragedy.
Yes, Waldo Cortez Acosta fighting Derek Lewis, and it results in a second round TKO. Was this exciting?
Person to finish the fight out of the main card, but that doesn't redeem it.
No. Wasn't this exciting? No.
Yeah, the buildup was exciting, and then you got the actual fight.
It was very slow, and
two guys doing all they can to load up the big right hand and missing over and over and over again.
They were so slow.
Until one of them slips on the canvas and doesn't try to get up, leaving himself open to be knocked out.
Right, and the thing is, I get that these are heavyweights, but come on, man, you can move faster than this. It looked like they were fighting in slow motion, and you're right. It was kind of sloppy. Like, and it did. I think Waldo Cortez Acosta was winning anyway, but the KO was set up off of a goofy slip. Yeah,
and I mean, Derek Lewis multiple times did not even make an effort to get up when he went down. Just lay on his back and let the ref let him up.
Yeah. I mean, what happened to
Waldo was cool with it till the end. The other thing, I really feel like Waldo's hype train derailed on this one. There's no way fighting like that he's going to be able to stand toe-to-toe with Gane, Aspinall, or heck, even
Sergey,
Volkov.
Volkov, Sergey, any of those good good strikers there.
Curtis Blades is who he called out.
Right. And
Blades is going to annihilate him.
Yeah, and I was actually going to just talk about that. So both were slow, and I was actually going to say the same thing that you said. He's not going to be able to beat Gane or Aspinall because this fight was not labeled a number one contender fight, but it definitely puts you in a spot where you could possibly contend for this title. And I'm thinking to myself, the way he's moving, I do not see him beating either of those guys. So, yeah, when the fight was over, he said he called out Curtis Blades because he's quote unquote talking a lot of crap. Maybe Curtis Blades is. I follow Curtis Blades online and I haven't heard him talking crap. Maybe I just have not stumbled upon it. But from what I see, Curtis Blades is a pretty humble guy who's not known for a lot of trash talk. So that kind of surprised me that he called out Curtis Blades. So maybe there's something that was said that I somehow missed. I went looking for it and I didn't find anything. Maybe some like backstage talk that just have made the rounds on social media. I'm not sure. But I'm disappointed that he called out Curtis Blades for talking crap instead of calling out that guy Hokit who fought on the prelims. We'll get to his fight later. But
well, he obviously wants to climb the ranks, but if he's going to just go for a one-punch knockout instead of being a well-rounded fighter, he should have called out Pavlovich.
Right, and I get where you're going with that, but I don't know, man. We will get to it when we get to it, but Hokit, who fought on the prelims, said some pretty terrible things just like a couple hours earlier in the night about Waldo Cortez Acosta, and I'm really surprised. It was Aura Farming, and like I said, we will get to that, but I'm really surprised that Waldo did not address that. But, maybe it's because he sees him as just being too far below him. I don't know. We'll talk more about that when we get to Hokit's fight Long story short, Waldo was slow. Maybe Rick was right. Maybe Waldo Cortez Acosta, after all, is just a very average heavyweight. He would lose to Gunnar Aspinall, and he wants to fight Curtis Blades. That's basically the takeaway from this fight. Now,
Yep.
Now here's the part where
to the robbery of the night.
So this is another one that some are calling a robbery, and unlike the Sean O'Malley fight, I agree that it was a robbery. And the thing is, I had picked Natalia Silva to win this fight, so the pick favored, or the decision favored my pick, my prediction, but it doesn't mean I'm just going to take that. I think Rose should have won this fight. So Natalia Silva wins 29-28 by all three judges against Rose Namajunas. A lot of people calling it a robbery. To be honest, the first round was kind of close, so maybe I don't want to argue it too much, but most people that I saw, pretty much everybody, had Rose 2-0 going into the third. Natalia Silva did win the third fight, so I think it should have been 29-28 Rose, but it ended up being 29-28 Natalia Silva. And now it's being confirmed by Dana White that Natalia Silva is next in line for Valentina Shevchenko for the title. So what is your takeaway on the fight itself and Natalia Silva going against Valentina?
Don't have high hopes. It's still women's MMA.
Of course.
No. It's
filthy casual.
This was a good fight. It was competitive. Rose went out there, and I think that she did enough to get the nod. Obviously, the judges disagree with me again. If you're looking for a fight-fixing scandal, I would look at the judges just because we'll get to fight-fixing later. But Natalia Silva did fight well. She, going against Valentina, that's going to be a tall mountain to climb.
She's not climbing that mountain. Yeah, she's not going to get it much past the base.
Don't count her out. She could get the judges paid off.
I'm counting her out because it's not going to make it to the judges. 5 rounds against Valentina. To be fair, her last few opponents didn't make it to the 5th round, but I don't know, man. I think Valentina is going to finish her. It's my opinion.
It's entirely possible. We'll have to see. I'm just not excited about that matchup.
No, but it is confirmed now. Dana White did say that Natalia Silva is next in line for the title against Valentina. So,
all right. Well, we will wait and see. This is their opportunity to prove us wrong.
And that's not the only Silva that won tonight.
The madman, the lunatic, the psychotic, crazed Jean Silva, who tries to take off flying around the arena from the back of their opponent.
Which has resulted in many great memes. I actually plan on posting some of them that I have stolen off of the interwebs and put them on our Facebook and Instagram and all that, because some of them were just absolutely hilarious. So towards the end of the fight, with maybe, less than 10 seconds or so left, Arnold Allen ended up in a turtle position. He's on his hands and knees, and Jean Silva decided to take that moment to just kind of jump up on his back with his feet and just leap off of him in a very comical way. And it has resulted in some very funny imagery after that. But the results were, one judge had it 30-27, 2 judges had it 29-28. I had it 29-28, but I actually said before the results were out, 29-28, but it wouldn't surprise me too much if there's a 30-27, because the round that I gave Arnold Allen was pretty close to be fair. So the results did not surprise me. Jean Silva gets a win by unanimous decision. And Arnold Allen, I think, still looked pretty decent until he was getting someone leapfrogging off his back. But overall, what do you think about this fight?
Man, the disrespect is strong. Whoever fights Silva next has got to go out there and administer some justice for this. You shouldn't. It's crazy when you're so far ahead of your opponent that you can meme in the middle of a fight and get away with it.
Yeah. Or
even at the end of a fight. He knew that was going to produce chatter, and I'm normally one for sportsmanship and honoring your opponent. But this was really funny.
It really was. And Arnold Allen had a good sense of humor about it too, because Jean Silva actually said he's a big fan of Arnold Allen, and he posted on, I think it was Twitter, that it was an honor to share the cage with you. He did like the usual respectful sportsmanship, comment directed at Arnold Allen, and Allen responded in kind, saying, yes, thank you. It was an honor to share the cage with you as well. By the way, though, I'm not a surfboard.
Yep.
I thought that was kind of funny. It shows that Arnold Allen has a sense of humor.
You got to after you get owned like that.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, Silva knew he did enough to win the fight, and he could have just piled on. Allen was turtled up, covered up, not able to fight back. And Silva could have tried to finish the fight, and a lot of people would have preferred that he did. But this was a much better way to go out of it.
Yeah. At least it was funny.
Yep.
And it didn't result in an injury or anything like that. Like, it almost looks like it could be considered disrespectful, but you can see, like, when it's all said and done, they're looking at each other and kind of laughing about it. So I think that kind of, eased any possible tensions. So it was funny. Like I said, I've seen a lot of funny memes that have come from it, and I'll be sure to post them. So make sure you like, subscribe, check out all our social medias, Ground and Pound Cast, where easy to find, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, which I don't really use, YouTube, all that, although I won't be posting those on YouTube most likely. But anyway, that was it for the main card. The prelims, we said before, how was this fight on the prelims? So the headline, we're going to jump to the next fight now. The headline fight of the prelims, Umar Nurmagomedov. Roy, you said earlier that the judges in two of those fights didn't agree with you. This is one where the judges do agree with you, and I disagreed. I'm the odd one out. So we agree who should have won, but the disagreement is, was it all 3 rounds? I don't think it's really worth going to a long debate over, but 30-27 from all 3 judges, Umar Nurmagomedov beating Deiveson Figueiredo. I had it 29-28 because I think Figueiredo took the second, but whenever we're talking about it, you had him having all 3 rounds.
Yep.
So I'll give you my reasoning for the reason why I gave Figueiredo the second round. He was able to stop all the takedowns. He was able to keep it standing. He controlled the pace. He was pushing forward a lot more, was landing more strikes. It was admittedly a much closer round, but he was able to keep it standing where Umar was trying to take him down and couldn't, and Figue was just landing more. But I still have, it doesn't really matter because I still have Umar winning the first and the third, so he would have won anyway. And one thing I got to say, and I've seen him fight before, but I guess I never really took note of this, and it was really apparent in this fight. Man, Umar Nurmagomedov is so quick. Like, his footwork, his strikes, his shoots for his takedowns, like everything. And I understand that these guys are featherweights, but even so, for featherweights, like the way he moves, I was kind of just blown away at how fast Umar is.
Bantamweights,
I apologize. I was close.
Yeah, they're the light guys.
Still, they're even for a bantamweight, even for a smaller guy, like, he was so fast. He was just moving around so quick. And I don't mean moving around frantically like Clay Guida, like it was movement with purpose, but everything was a very swift, no wasted movement. His footwork was fantastic. He just glided around that ring. It was really impressive to watch.
Yeah, Umar is definitely going to be headed towards the top of the division real quick. I doubt we ever see him on a prelim again unless Dana just hates his guts.
He should not have been on the prelim in the first place in this one, but I digress.
Yeah, and Figueiredo is in the same boat. He better have gotten a deal to be on a main card for the next fight. He got out there and fought his heart out. He left it in the cage. He pushed himself to a limit, it looked like, and still managed to grind out a decision.
Yeah. It was a pretty fun fight, though. I would say, honestly, this was one of the better fights on the card, in my opinion. It wasn't like the best. The best has to be the main event, but it was still a pretty good one. Even though he lost, I think Figueiredo did look pretty good. Unlike Sean O'Malley, Figueiredo actually showed some anti-grappling. It's really hard to stop Umar, but even so, he's able to stop some takedowns. He was able to, even if he did get taken down, sometimes you might get taken down, but you'll still see someone shifting and trying to set up a sprawl or shooting for an underhook or something. Whereas other people, I just don't see doing that at all. Figueiredo showed pretty good anti-grappling, but Umar was just a bit too much for him. But overall, it's pretty fun to watch.
Yep. All right. Who else you want to cover from the prelims?
I actually have notes on every single fight, man. I was really tuned into this one. I have stuff to say. I think a few of them I'll be a little bit quicker on, but I do have stuff to say on all of them.
Hit it up.
All right. So the next one here, this is one where we really disagree on. I don't know if we want to spend a lot of time debating it. So you have Nikita Krylov. Did I type that wrong? Kyrlov? Or is it Kry? I have
Krylov.
I think I typed it wrong on my notes here. He beat Modestas Bukauskas in what I think is the most boring fight of the entire night. Even though it ended in third round KO, it was just so boring. And this was really disappointing because Bukauskas, if you recall, is coming off of that amazing buzzer beater elbow KO for Paul Craig. So I had a lot of hype behind Bukauskas. I was expecting big things out of him coming into this fight and just gave us an absolute snoozer. And Krylov honestly didn't look very impressive either. He just did slightly more. It's not even that he did a lot. He just did less, if that makes any sense. It was pretty boring. And then towards the end of the third round, Krylov just ended up catching him. I don't know what else to say about this fight. I will say, I said that this is the fight that we're going to debate on. Actually, that was actually the fight after that, and I skipped it. We'll have to double back on that one. So anyway, yeah, I don't know if you have much you want to add on that one. It was a boring fight that ended in the third round KO, which is kind of disappointing considering how hyped Bukauskas looked after the Paul Craig fight. Anything you want to add on that one?
When you pick and choose your strikes, part of that equation is choosing to strike.
There was a lot of cage grappling. I remember the second round, like 3.5 minutes were just them switching positions, pressing each other up against the cage. There was like no action.
If you had put on some Marvin Gaye, it would have been illegal to put out on network TV.
Right.
But these guys just underperformed. I wouldn't be surprised if they both got cut from the UFC for not being exciting enough in this new era.
Yeah, we'll see. We have seen people win and still get cut for boring performances, so I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be mad at that one. We'll see. All right, so the fight that I accidentally skipped, I scrolled down too far, pulling up my next set of notes. This is the one we're supposed to debate on. So we have Atiba Gauthier. Gauthier is how they said it, but we're Louisiana boys, so we're just going to keep calling him Gaucher. Beats Andrei Polyaev by unanimous decision. One judge had a 30-27 Gaucher, and two judges had it 29-28. I agree with the ones that had it 29-28. But you told me that you had Polyaev winning this one.
I did. I felt like his damage was more substantial in the first and third.
So the notes that I have right here is Gauthier took the first two rounds. The third was close, but Polyaev took it by a hair. That's my notes. I don't know how you gave Polyaev round one. I think we agree that he took round three, and we agree Gauthier took round two. One judge gave all three to Gauthier, which I don't agree with.
Maybe it was round two I gave him. I don't have notes in front of me. I wasn't prepared to go into the undercard. So.
Right. Well, I remember it was one of those rounds. You had him winning the round, and I remember being surprised by that. But we could move on. Let's see. Alex Perez beat Charles Johnson by TKO in the first round. this, in my notes that I have here, this was a good scrappy back and forth fight. This is another one. It was only one round, not even a full one round because it ends in the first, but those two really threw down in the short amount of time that they fought. Now, the big highlight of this fight is whenever the referee jumped in and called it a TKO, Charles Johnson just didn't seem to realize that the fight had been called, and he kept charging at Perez and trying to take him down and still strike at him, and they had to like separate him. And it wasn't because he was like angry and continuing to go, because whenever like they kind of like, hey dude, the fight's over, you can see he calmed down and like went congratulated Perez. So I don't think at first I thought he was just like mad and continuing the fight anyway, but it didn't seem like that was what happened.
No, he was loopy.
He was loopy, and so he just kept shooting towards Perez in autopilot mode, and it's kind of scary to watch whenever their brain shuts off but not completely, and they go into autopilot, and it shows like the instincts taking over for a fighter. It's really wild to see, and that's not the first time we've seen that, but we get to see that in this fight. And like I said, even though it was less than one full round, it was pretty fun to watch because Charles hurt him. Like, even though he lost a fight, like there's points where Charles Johnson was taking it to Perez, and Perez would have the, backpedal and fire back, and they went back and forth, and eventually Perez caught him. So it was wild. It was very high pace for such a short fight. So that's my notes on that one.
That's the beauty of flyweight, is that they can take up that pace and maintain it for a long time.
Yes.
And most guys can't just go toe to toe swinging like that for 2 minutes and continue it. They really are great athletes, and it was a good fight.
Yep. All right, so the next fight that we would talk about, I'm actually going to skip because I have more to say on it. I want to get the other one out of the way because I think there's less to say on it. I want to spend more time talking on this fight. So we're going to skip the Hokett versus Freeman fight, and I'm going to quickly say the opening fight of the night. What's that?
Adam Fugit.
Adam Fugit is how it's pronounced.
Fugit.
Lost to Ty Miller by TKO in the very last second. This again was another fun back and forth fight. These two, Ty Miller was winning the majority of the round. He was just really teeing off on Adam Fugit, but eventually Fugit was able to land a disgusting spinning at back elbow that caught Miller in the forehead and split him wide open. But that didn't stop Miller. Miller kept fighting and eventually finishes him off. Buzzer beater, 1 second left in the round, wins by TKO, and he's celebrating. There's blood just pouring down his face because he got split open by that elbow. Ty Miller is now 7-0 in his overall career. I think this was his UFC debut, if I'm not mistaken. This was pretty fun fight to watch, and Ty Miller is coming from a really good camp, and I think that he could have a very bright future if he continues fighting like this. I really like this fight, even though it was 4 minutes and 59 seconds.
It's always exciting when there's a buzzer beater, isn't it?
It really is. It was not only was it a buzzer beater.
3 of them on this card.
Yes. Not only was this a buzzer beater, but it was a really fast-paced back-and-forth scrap where even the winner took a pretty good amount of damage in just 4 minutes and 59 seconds. And that's not the only fight that ended that quickly, because the fight that happened right after that, the one I saved for last I want to talk about, also ended in 4 minutes and 59 seconds of the first round. And it was not because of it would be classified as a TKO, but it's not the type of TKO like I punch you and rock you and then finish you off with strikes or anything like that. Denzel Freeman, a Marine Corps veteran. I was wanting to support this guy. I'm an Army veteran. I like to root for the military guys. And I was expecting a lot out of him. And Denzel Freeman, there's conflicting reports because, like the significant strikes, if you look at different websites, sometimes they have different numbers because they might have different standards for what they consider a significant strike. And sometimes they'll say, well, that one was slipped, it didn't count, but other sites would consider it counted. I looked at a whole bunch of websites, and some sites have Denzel Freeman landing 1 strike. Some have him landing 0 strikes. That's an embarrassment. And eventually he loses. These are heavyweights, by the way. He loses just by pure exhaustion. He just kind of falls over, and then Hokit starts walking around the ring, or walking around the cage, just flipping off Freeman, not even wanting to engage, just flipping him off. And eventually the ref's like, okay, I've seen enough, and just steps in and calls the fight. And so it's called TKO by retirement, because Freeman was just exhausted and not really able to get up, and Hokit was just standing around and flipping him off. It was pretty bad showing by Denzel Freeman. Honestly, not a bad showing by Josh Hokit. This wasn't like the other ones where the other fights we talked about that were boring, where you win, but you still look like crap. Hokit did not look bad. But that's not why I wanted to save this fight for last, because he ended with a post-fight speech that kind of shocked the MMA world. I don't know if shocked the MMA world is a bit too extreme to say, but before we get into that, what did you think of the fight overall between Hokit and Freeman?
I've heard of quitting on the stool. I've never heard of it being called because you couldn't make it to the stool before the round ended.
That was wild.
This is an example of why you've got to go through something like Contender Series to make it into the UFC. Someone that out of shape shouldn't have even been allowed to compete.
Landed somewhere between 0 and 1 strikes. I have to say that again. That is just wild to me.
Yeah. Like completely outclassed, out cardioed. I can't stand Hokit for what he did after the fight, but in the fight,
he looked good. He really did. I can't take that away from him.
He was solid considering what he was up against. At least he didn't just pound the guy to pound him.
Right.
You know, that is redeeming. He could have really hurt Freeman.
Yeah. So then he wins. They put the microphone up to his face. The dude puts on a bandana and sunglasses so he could look like either Macho Man or Hulk Hogan. Then he gives this victory speech that was completely ripped from Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen is known for doing the, biggest arms and the most charm. He likes to do this rhyming type of wrestling vignette style promo. And that's exactly what this did, but it was like, this guy did, but it was like a crappierwish.com version of it. So he's got the bandana, he's got the sunglasses, he's trying to look like a pro wrestler like Hulk Hogan or Macho Man. Then he steals Chael Sonnen's gimmick of doing like a rhyming, programmed out speech. He even threw in, and that's the bottom line, when he's talking, trying to sound like Stone Cold. This dude has absolutely no originality. It was one of the cringiest things I've ever heard. And then he ends, and one more thing, P.S., Brittany Griner is a man, so a basketball player has nothing to do with any of this. He calls her out for some stupid reason.
Just strays out here.
Right. And this is what I mentioned earlier about the Waldo Cortez Acosta fight. In this speech where he's just trash talking, doing this very cringy wrestling style promo, he said that Waldo Cortez Acosta is a deadbeat dad to all 9 of his children. I was completely blown away when he said that, and I was really hoping I would see Waldo Cortez Acosta address that, but he didn't. And you know what? That's not where it ended, because whenever he went and did the post-fight presser, not the in the cage speech, but whenever they do the interviews afterwards backstage, he continues with another rhyming speech like that. A lot of it was just repeating the stuff he's already said. He once again called Waldo Cortez Acosta deadbeat dad. I just can't get over how freaking cringy this was.
Absolutely. It's a good thing that he's undefeated, because if he couldn't fight, he's the kind of guy who would be getting his ass kicked on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Like, this is the guy at the bar who walks up and slaps your girl on the ass and says, "Get with a real man." And maybe that's the role that he wants to play. That's the heel that he's interested in. But at least be original about it. Don't rip off, a thing from everybody and try to turn it into just this regurgitated
promo, basically.
Yeah, let's go with promo. It's just regurgitated crap, man.
Yeah, it was programmed out.
We've heard it all before, just not in that order.
Yeah, it was just really bad. Like I said, it was like a Wish.com version of Chael Sonnen mixed with Macho Man, mixed with Stone Cold in all the absolute worst ways. Just leave it to the pros, man.
All those guys, they charisma. This guy is doing it with no charisma.
None. It was so bad. It was so, like, and even like this tone of voice where he's kind of like pacing back and forth and talking in this weird tone of voice, and and it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? It was so cringy. But you know what? As much as we're complaining about it, it achieved what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to get people talking, even if it's negatively. It's supposed to get people talking so people know who he is, so they actually look at this guy and they're going to tune in for his next fight. So maybe there's a method to the madness. I still think it was terrible to listen to. It was very cringy, but it achieved what he was trying to achieve, and that's getting attention.
Yep, I will be watching intently for someone to knock him out.
Yeah. Hopefully Waldo Cortez Acosta, since he wants to call him a deadbeat dad to all 9 of his kids. That
I don't think he'll climb high enough to get to Acosta, but if it happens, that's the way that I'm leaning.
Well, we keep saying it's pretty easy to climb these rankings if you rack up some wins. So if Waldo Cortez Acosta,
that would require going from, outside the top 15 into the top 5 with a performance like he just had.
We'll see. Maybe it'll be a few years from now.
Let's see how that goes.
Yeah. Speaking of Tai Tuivasa, he fights next week, but we'll get to that in a minute. A couple more things we want to discuss here about this event, because those are all the fights. So we had 2 fighters, Cameron Smotherman and Ricky Turcios, Turcios. That fight got canceled because Smotherman weighed in, he made weight, stepped off the scale, and immediately passed out. Dana White said it's probably just nerves.
That's how you know he cares about the fighters. He doesn't wait for a medical diagnosis. It's probably the most dismissive thing I can come up with.
When you literally walk off of the scale, that's when people are cutting up until the point, like minutes before. They don't like cut and then a few hours later, like, I'll go weigh in now. Like you're cutting until you reach that number, and then you reach the number and you go in and weigh in immediately. So that means he was still actively doing things to cut weight minutes before stepping on the scale, and then passes out. Oh yeah, it's totally nerves.
Yeah, Dana loves these fighters. He talked about Tom by surgery. He means injections, but he won't say anything about Tom's eye.
Yeah,
and this one was just nerves. With the Paramount deal, maybe it's the new money. Dana just doesn't seem to care right now.
MMA On Point, a fantastic YouTube channel that does a lot of MMA commentary in general, but it's mostly focused on UFC. They actually have covered a few times lately about Dana White showing to care less about UFC in general. Like he still does his stuff, but with the power slap and the Sufa boxing, it seems like he's a bit checked out and just kind of going with the flow, and is very dismissive of a lot of things. They do a pretty good breakdown on that. They're a really big channel. If you follow MMA in a social media sphere, you probably already know about them, but they've recently covered that. So we're not the only people to think that.
If you follow them, you should follow us.
You should. Like, we're just as good as they are. They should follow us too.
I agree.
Yep. And another interesting thing happened. We had another fight that was canceled. Michael Johnson versus Alex Hernandez was canceled because of some strange betting activity. New era, same problems. So this is a quote from a website that mentioned what happened, at least very briefly. They didn't go into very specific details, but the website that I pulled this up on said, it's claimed that as recently as late last month, Hernandez was a heavy favorite with bookers. In the hours before fight night, however, the odds were said to have shifted heavily in Johnson's favor, suggesting money had poured in on the American. I don't know why they said on the American, because both fighters are American, but whatever. That is word for word copy paste from the website.
Interesting.
Yep.
And did you notice that Herzog is back? So he must have been cleared.
I guess so. There's a lot of murky things going on right now.
Yeah, they're being hush-hush about the investigation and all this. If they found anything, I'm sure that we'd hear about it.
Yep. And one other thing that happened in this event, a good thing to happen, something positive to talk about. Dominic Cruz was added to the UFC Hall of Fame. Yep. Anything you want to add to that?
Nope, that was pretty encompassing on he got added to the Hall of Fame. He deserves it.
Yeah. He was a fun champ to watch in his prime. And he came back from some pretty career-threatening, surgeries and injuries. He overcame that, became champion after dealing with that. So the dude's got a lot of grit.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. It was a big thing a while back where I have to go back and look everything up. If I remember correctly, he had to vacate the title. He had like some massive knee surgeries or something like that. And basically, it looked like he'd probably never be able to fight again. Not only was he able to come back and fight, but become a champion again. So a multiple-time champion. Yeah. The dude's a beast, man. The dude's a beast. So congratulations to Dominic Cruz for being the first member of the 2026 wing of the UFC Hall of Fame. So next week, we have UFC 325. They're not giving us a break, man. Going to 2 numbered events back to back.
Yep, absolutely. This one's going to be a banger.
All right. So the episode, we don't want this episode to be too long, so we'll quickly go through our predictions. We're just going to cover the main card. I'm going to give you my predictions and a quick notes on why, and then Roy will add yours, and then we'll wrap it up. So the main event, you have Alexander Volkanovski going against Diego Lopez, rematch once again for the title. And I have Volkanovski winning this one. I'm still not super confident in that because I think Lopez is going to come back stronger this time than last time. But I think overall, Volkanovski's experience is going to benefit him here. Again, I'm not super confident, but I think it's a little bit too early to be putting Lopez against Volkanovski this quick for a rematch. So I'm going to stick with Volk on this one. I had Lopez last time, and I was wrong. So I'm going to stick with Volk with this one. Yep. And then the next fight, we're working our way from top to bottom like usual. I got Benoit Saint-Denis fighting Dan Hooker. I got Benoit Saint-Denis winning. I think Dan Hooker, as good as he is, Benoit Saint-Denis is kind of on a roll right now. He's really getting a lot of momentum. I think he's getting better with every fight. And I think it's just going to be too much for Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's pretty good, but he's like a high-level journeyman. He's like a really good, fun, entertaining journeyman. I think Benoit Saint-Denis is future title contender material. I think he still has a little bit of cleaning up to do with this game, but overall, that's what I think about that fight. All right, I got Mauricio Hufi winning against Rafael Fiziev. So Hufi actually started training with Volkanovski's team. He is no longer with the Fighting Nerds, and I think that this change in camp might be good for him. So we'll see if the change in camp helps. I think overall, if you look at their records, I think Hufi's just overall better than Fizzy, but this is another one I'm not super confident in because Fizzy is pretty good. So this is one of my least confident picks. I'd say this one and the Volkanovski-Lopez fight. I'm not super confident in those two, but those are the ones I'm going with. All right, the easiest one to go with on my predictions, I think this is the lock of the night. You have Tellison Teixeira beating Tai Tuivasa. Tai Tuivasa is a very fun brawler, but in the UFC, he's just barely over 50% win record. Tellison Teixeira is 8-1. And I know that doesn't necessarily mean that he's definitely going to win, but when I just look at the overall talent between these two, I think Teixeira is leaps and bounds over Tai Tuivasa. This is my most confident pick for next week. And making his main card debut, because before he was a prelim guy who hasn't been in the UFC very long. I think he's only had maybe 2 fights or so, if I'm not mistaken. Quillan Salkilde, I have him beating Jamie Malarkey. Salkilde the one a few months ago. He won with that disgusting head kick KO that we talked about where the dude almost looked dead for a little bit, and even Salkilde, when the camera went up to, zoomed in on his face, he almost looked horrified, like, oh my God, what did I just do? That knockout lives rent-free in my head, and I think about it at least once daily. That was one of the nastiest knockouts I've seen in recent memory, and he is fighting next week against Jamie Malarkey, and I looked at some footage on Malarkey and his record, and I just think Salkilde's going to be too much for him. I think he's got a lot of potential. He's currently 10-1 in his career. I think he's going to win by KO. That's my take on UFC 325.
You're not going to believe it. Well, you will, because I sent it to you in the group message before you told me your picks. But we have the same picks for every one of these.
Yep.
That means we're probably wrong.
Yep. I never go 5-0. Which one am I going to be wrong? I'm telling you.
Positive or negative. I never go 0-5 or 5-0.
I have almost gone. I've gone 1-4. But
I've gone 1-4, yeah.
If I'm going to be wrong, it's got to be number 1 or number 3. That is Volkanovski and Lopez and Hufia and Fiziev. I think those two could be pretty close.
Volkanovski, Lopez, I'm counting Lopez out. It hasn't been long enough for him to change anything significantly enough to compete with Volkanovski.
You never know.
St. Denis Hooker. Hooker's on his way out, and St. Denis there to show him the door. Fiziev, Rufi, this one's a toss-up, but I'm going to give it to Rufi.
That one really is a toss-up. I think they're very close.
Tuivasa.
That's the lock.
It's time for Tai Tuivasa to get the heck out of the UFC, giving it to Teixeira. The day of the fat heavyweight, I think, is coming to an end. We're seeing its last surgeons, and then we're going to see athletes who can compete on par with Gane and Aspinall.
And then all those fat heavyweight non-athletic people are just going to get into jiu-jitsu competition. They'll be going against me, and they'll be beating me up.
No, they'll go play pickleball.
That is the new thing.
And then how do you say Salkilid?
Salkilid, I think is how it's pronounced.
Quillen?
Salkilid.
You know who I'm talking about. I think he's going to go ahead and put Malarkey in the closet.
The one that has that head kick KO, I'm telling you, lives rent free in my head. My God, that KO is sick.
Yes. That was something that you see, that kind of power out of a heavyweight hitting somebody and putting their lights out. To come from a lightweight with that kind of power and accuracy is dangerous and scary.
And the thing is, it wasn't like he just got a lucky hit. He was showing a lot of precision leading up to that knockout. It was just a really good performance all around. So anyway, that's our picks. Anything else you want to say about this event, next week's event, any other MMA news or anything like that? You got anything else you want to talk about?
Next week, I'm looking, do we have any heavyweight fights? Not only Tai Tuivasa and Teixeira. So the heavyweight division still needs to move forward. We need to call and harass the UFC and tell them to stop recruiting fat guys.
Yeah. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up. So make sure you tune in next week when we do a recap on UFC 325. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, check out all our socials, rate, review. If you like our show, tell your friends. If you don't like our show, tell your enemies. And continue supporting us, and we will support you with fine MMA content. Thank you, and have a good day.